Natalie? I don't know. I don't think so.
Oh, please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I call this meeting of Independent School District 544 to order. Clerk, will you establish a quorum for us, please?
Certainly. Kirby Anderson.
Present.
Melanie Cole.
Here.
Missy Fergus, present. Matthew Lemke.
Here.
Stephen Begasa.
Present.
And Natalie Knudsen. We have a quorum.
Thank you. Do we have a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second?
Any discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Agenda passes. Moving on to item number D is the resolution acknowledgements. The 8th grade teaching team would like to publicly thank two organizations for their generosity towards the 8th grade service project. The Thrivent Financial for a gift of $250 and the Otter Tail Power Company for paper printing supplies. Would somebody offer that resolution, move for its adoption?
I will do that.
Do we have a second?
Second?
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Let's see. Melanie Cole.
Yes.
Missy Hermes, yes. Kirby Anderson.
Yes.
Matthew Lemke.
Yes.
Stephen Begasa.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Moving on to reports, we have Kirby Anderson with 544 Education Foundation and Finance.
Yes, Education Foundation 544. We have not met since our early meeting last year because of the calendar, the way it fell. We are meeting this Thursday. Jeff Drake joined us last time, and this will be Jerry's last time on Thursday, so we're going to have a little luncheon for him. We also will be looking for 2 new board members. We're looking at all-school reunion, June 11th and 12th, 2021. I think that corresponds with our 150th anniversary of our school. And right now, we're in the midst of reviewing grant requests, and so it's kind of a busy time for the 544 Foundation. So we'll be meeting this Thursday again. The Finance Committee report, Natalie and Matt and I did meet on May 21st with Mark, and we went over the budget, and we talked about a number of issues and assumptions that went into the budget. Our enrollment assumption is real close to last year. I think we were down 26 students as far as the assumption of how many students we have for money coming in. We discussed the transportation budget and the ups and downs of that. We had just found out that the state had gone from the proposed 3% and 2% increases to a 2% and 2%, and so that's about a $200,000 impact on our budget. But Mark assured us that we had contingencies and everything looks fine. And of course, we had the first reading of the budget today. Talked a little bit about the target lease buy levy and the implications of that and the budget and just how the ramifications of that and how just more the mechanics of how it all works. And I think that was about it. I don't know, Matt is not here. Did you have anything else to add?
Nope.
We covered everything we needed to cover, so thanks to Mark for filling us in on everything.
Any questions for Kirby? Thank you, Kirby. Melanie Cole, Special Ed Co-op, Region 1 and activities.
Well, the Special Ed Cooperative will have a large meeting today, and the agenda includes reestablishing officers and the agenda for the next year, so a different schedule than this board. We also are entertaining the retirement of the special ed director who wants to retire and then apply for her job back and then do the thing where she can access her retirement and then draw a salary, so we'll have that on the table for our agenda there today. And then a lot of the end of the year wrap up that Shannon Erickson generally reports on. Region 1 board, we reviewed the budget last meeting and just talk a lot about staffing and the different implications for the large expansion of the Synergy program and how that's impacting that technical service provider. And then Activities Board has not met, so I don't have anything to report on that.
Any questions for Melanie? Thank you, Melanie. Mr. Hermes, we have staff development and curriculum review.
The curriculum review committee did not meet. We don't meet again until October. But staff development met last Tuesday, and already a lot of staff have turned in requests for some fantastic training. And so the committee already has gone through a substantial portion of that budget. Yeah, so that's fantastic. People thinking ahead and planning ahead for some training that's coming up.
And I think a big one that we've done a Google Summit every summer, and Google didn't want to come back for some reason, but Jesse's working with the service co-op. They're going to do, it's called the Ignite Learning Summit, and it'll be very, very similar, just not with the Google name. But there'll be lots of Google things in classroom technology.
Any questions for Missy? Thank you, Missy. Natalie Knudsen, wellness.
She will be
wanted
here
to-
shortly. She'll
okay.
be here shortly.
So we'll do it at the end. Okay, Lakes Country Service Co-op, for my reports, is we are actually meeting tomorrow, so I have nothing to report for them. Minnesota High School League, they did meet Monday, June 3rd, and just to talk about some proposals that were approved that were going to be implemented now in the 2021-2022 year, and that will be going with cross country. Did approve to go to 3 classes, so going from 2 to 3. Soccer did also approve the proposed change to go to 3 class tournaments also, so they're going from 2 to 3. And volleyball approved a proposal to change the format to 4 class tournaments, so going from 3 to 4. So that also was approved. One thing that was shot down again, and I don't know why it always is shut down, but it is, basketball, I know why. Basketball shot clock. The proposal to implement the shot clock was defeated 13-5 on a roll call vote, with one abstaining from it, and I think the main reason is usually they talk about cost. It's their main reason as I go, but North Dakota and South Dakota have it for a long time, and they don't seem to worry about the cost in that part. But anyway, so we'll wait, hopefully someday. But
What do they do now? Do they have just the ref kind of, they have no shot clock?
Different thing. So a shot clock is, there's an additional clock
Right,
above the
right.
backboard that has 30 seconds or 35 seconds that runs down all the
Right,
time.
right.
And then your other clock is just your normal thing. So it'll just be normal basketball.
So how do they keep track of it? Do they have a rule in a game now, or is it just like?
no, not in Minnesota high school. No,
Okay.
no.
Okay.
So-
But at tournaments and things like that, they do have it. So a lot of schools have the capability. You need another staff member to run that all the time though.
Right.
So it is an additional cost.
So they can run down the clock in a
Mhm.
game if they wanted to, because there is no rule against holding on the ball too
Yeah.
long.
Correct.
Right.
I mean, there's been teams, unfortunately, that have held the ball for like a whole half, and just held it outside, and everybody
Just pass it around. And,
no, they just stand there.
Oh, wow.
And
Until
hold
they
it,
get
so-
fouled or something.
Yeah, well, yeah. So anyway, it's just kind of, oh well.
Interesting.
I'm sure I'll come back again and see what happens. So, and then the other one that I thought was very interesting is the parent education video is in the works and will be provided to all schools for the use with their parents. So I don't know if this will be coming out this fall or if they're going to wait till the following year, but there's going to be a parent educational video produced by Minnesota High School League.
So
Yeah.
sportsmanship.
I suppose it'll be on sportsmanship and why we
Parents.
play. Yeah,
Yeah.
just, I think it'll be fun.
Maybe it could be assigned
Yeah,
to
like
somebody
Sandy's-
particularly problematic.
So we will see if that happens or not. And the last thing, and this has nothing to do with Minnesota High School League necessarily, but the Central Lakes Conference. There is still one sport out there, but we did receive 2 sportsmanship awards this year for volleyball and for boys hockey, which moves our total to 83. And so we're in second place with that, knowing that we joined the Central Lakes in 2005, 2006, where Brainerd, which has been a founder since 1997, is at 89. So again, just shows that not only how we play, you know, and that we also compete very hard too, so I thought it was something to just talk about a little bit. Something that our community can be proud of.
Oops.
We'll go Steve Vegas, legislative liaison, and meet and defer.
You want to unlock the
Legislature, really Jerry kind of covered it in his last report, but I'll just give a recap of kind of what it ended up, what the session ended up in terms of education. So the education formula is going up 2%, 2% and 2%, which is good. I think the governor wanted 3% and 2%, so it was pretty close. The special ed cross subsidy was frozen, so that just means, so little history is in 75, the Individuals with Disabilities Act was passed and saying that the government was going to fund, the federal government was going to fund 40% of special education costs. They're actually only at 17%, so they're not actually, it's not all the state's fault. The federal government isn't putting up their own, not doing what they said they're going to do. Let's see here. So basically, it kind of stops the bleeding, so to speak, but it doesn't really fix the gap. You know, so schools are having to pick up the tab for the special education costs. A kid that's in special ed can cost 10 times or more to educate, and we have to educate them because of the law, which is great, and there's nothing wrong with that, but you know, and those costs are only going up, and so at least it's really big on their radar. Hopefully, you know, in the next few years they can decrease the gap. School safety bonds are here again, or grants, sorry, are here again. There's about $33 million available to schools for making their schools safer, but that's if we have a big enough surplus. So that there's an asterisk on that, so that might not be available. One of the more exciting things about the session is the agricultural credit for taxes on property for school referendums on farmers is they get a tax break now of 40%, and then by 2023 they actually get a 70% break, which is going to be really nice. And I can't remember the percentage, but rural Minnesota school referendums, bond referendums are like in the 20s or maybe low 30s of pass rate. Is that right, Jerry?
Yeah, this May, there was a bunch of bond referendums in May, and 50% was rural, but 100% in metro. And so that's why they keep pushing, but you're right, it's 25, 30, depending on the year. So this really should help.
Yeah, and that's usually, I mean, and quite frankly, it wasn't really fair, and I'm glad that they're making that, because farmers paying more than anybody else just because they own more land, which some of it may not even pertain to where their kids go to school too. So so that's kind of the highlights of the session. And meet and confer is not met or conferred, so that's about it for me.
Any questions for Steve? Can I just ask you one question on the safety grants for buildings and stuff? It's competitive again, but are they following the same format as last time? Or they'll pick different?
I met with,
regions and stuff?
Tom Melcher was here, to be determined.
Okay.
Coming up.
The thing that I read, it said that the commissioner is going to appoint the bonds, but it didn't say a competitive.
It sounds like it's going to be more fair this time rather
Yeah.
than go into a lottery system. So
Okay.
hopefully we have access to it.
Okay. Other questions for Steve? Thank you, Steve. Natalie Knudsen, wellness, policy, and buildings and grounds.
Yeah, wellness has not met. Building and grounds, we haven't met formally, but talked briefly about the Target building and kind of next steps on that, so nothing really new there. And then policy, we're gonna be approving a couple revisions of some policies in our minutes today, and then discussing a couple in our work session, so. Not a whole lot.
Any questions for Natalie? Thank you, Natalie. Superintendent Ness.
Yes, graduation has come and gone. It seems like a long time ago now, but it really wasn't that long ago. And then we had great graduation ceremonies, the LC. We had 16 graduate from the LC, which is, and Kristen Toole said about 75% of them were in the 4-year category, which is awesome. So the rate should go up there. 39 graduates from IQ Academy, which is again setting a record there. So really, the improvement plans that we've been implemented have done some nice things. Look forward to seeing where that graduation rate jumps to. Since that time, it's all the end of the year type things. So we had the district meeting at the end, checkout days. Staff have, their logged hours. We had some training for our 544 special ed paras. Did all those types of training. So it's just sort of this end of year type things, details, reports going into MDE. I'm meeting with every principal this week on their evaluations. So it's sort of a cleanup time before we head off, to different places. So.
Any questions for Superintendent Ness? Thank you. Moving on to our general consent items, we have the minutes for the May 28th board meeting. Bills report. Mr. Anderson.
Yes. Steve and I did meet this morning with Mark, and we reviewed the bills, and we found, even though Mark had gone for a while, everything was in order. So thanks to the folks that took care of that while Mark was gone. They did a nice job, and we had a few questions, but nothing out of the ordinary. So thank you.
Moving on to personnel, Elaine Jenke.
Oh, yes, I better turn the page, right? We've been a little busy, kind of ending up the year and then again starting to work on the new year. So with that, we have some resignations. We have Ethel Eslison in the cafeteria, Sue Thorson, and Madison Differding. And all of those ended our school year basically with us and will not be returning in the fall. As far as support staff hire, we have Arden Chono, mechanical worker. He will start with our mechanical department on June 24th. And then as far as certified teaching staff hires, we have Caitlin Lillis, who will be working over at Cleveland, and then Melissa Honorud. She will be a .333, 1/3 time social studies here at Kennedy Secondary School. And then we have some certified teaching staff contract changes. These are IQ staff that during the school year, their FTE increases because they've been very gracious and flexible in taking on more students and accommodating us. But then to start the school year back, we, with their approval, they rescind some of their rights to that FTE, knowing that it will start climbing again as the school year continues on. So those three are Jessica Swedberg, Vanessa Jacobson, and Ann Sco. And then they have their information right there in front of you regarding the FTE that they're rescinding, and then their total FTE that they will start the school year off. So, so those I request approval from the school board.
Okay, thank you. Do we have a motion to approve the general consent items?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
I'll take Steve. Any discussion?
My granddaughter, who was in first grade at Hawley, highly recommended Catherine Lillis. She was her student teacher this year.
That's awesome. That's awesome. 6-year-old.
Do we have all those in favor of approving the general consent items, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? General consent items pass. There is no old business, we have new business here. Item number 1 is an additional 1 FTE kindergarten teaching position for the 2019-2020 school year due to increase of enrollment numbers. So we are moving from 9 sections to 10 sections. Do we have a motion to approve that one? So I want to offer that motion.
I'll offer the motion.
Do we have a second?
I'll second that one.
Any discussion? It's good to see our numbers keep going up. All those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item number 2 is just the first reading of FY20 school district finance budget. So there's no action on this. It's just for you to review again the budget. If you have any further questions, to please email Mark. And then we'll have that at our next meeting for approval. Item number 3 is the 2019-2020 membership with Minnesota Rural Education Association. And this is an annual renewal. Would somebody offer that motion to approve?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second?
Any discussion?
I appreciate you approving this. You know, with Ag to School is one of the big wins for the Minnesota Rural Education Association. But it's at the legislative session, it's almost as important of what they don't do to you as what they have passed, actually. So there is a short list of new mandates versus there was a plethora of different things. So they were able to be part of the organizations to not have those incumbents on the district, so it was good too.
I'll just say just that I do really appreciate Minnesota Rural Education Association. I think they have a policy to a rule. Sometimes MSBA is kind of in a tough, Minnesota School Board Association's in a tough position sometimes because they're representing everybody, whereas I guess Minnesota Rural Education Association is truly representing outstate Minnesota, and I do really appreciate them. With that, all those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item number 4 is we have a resolution calling for a public hearing on the on lease purchase agreement and related certificate of participation for the acquisition and renovation of Target store for the relocation the district's early childhood program and sublease or portion of building to Fergus Falls Community Child Care Center, Inc. Be it resolved by the School Board of Independent School District number 544, Fergus Falls, Minnesota, the district as follows. The district has executed a letter of intent to purchase a former Target store and adjacent land and intends to renovate the building for purpose of the district's early childhood program. A portion of the renovated facility will be leased to the Fergus Falls Community Child Care Center, Inc., a Minnesota nonprofit corporation, the Child Care Center. The district proposes to finance the project by means of certificate of participation, the certificates in a lease purchase agreement, the lease with a trustee to be determined, the trustee. The certificates will be issued by the trustee in an amount up to $6,800,000, and the proceeds will be used to acquire the property and complete the renovation. A portion of the facility will be subleased to the Child Care Center. Number 2, because of the portion of the facility to be financed are to be used by a non-government entity, Section 147F of the Internal Revenue Code of 1986 as amended, and regulations promulgated thereunder require that prior to issuance of certificates, the board approve the proposed project and the issuance of the certificates after conducting a public hearing thereon. A public hearing on the proposal for the execution of lease and the issue of certificates is hereby called and shall be held on July 15th, 2019 at 8 a.m. in the Otter Community Room at Kennedy Secondary School, 601 Randolph Avenue, Fergus Falls. Item number 3 is the clerk shall cause notice of public hearing in substantially the form attached hereto as Exhibit A to be published in a newspaper of general circulation in the district once not fewer than 7 days prior to the date fixed for the public hearing. Before I entertain a resolution, Mark, do you want to just talk real briefly on
what this is all about?
Yes.
Okay, what this is all about is you're in the process of starting the funding mechanism that will be used to acquire and renovate the Target building. And as it states, there has to be a public hearing. At the same time, you're setting notice to the public that there will be a sale of some bonds of $6.8 million. And that will take place here. It doesn't say the date, but the actual date will take place in August. And we'll collect those funds and then use them for that purpose. So this is your first set of documents in towards the financing of that project.
Any questions from Mark?
So that public meeting will be here And are you gonna make a presentation, or?
Yeah.
And people show up.
Yep. Well, we'll be here.
Yes.
We will be here.
Yes.
Okay, will somebody offer that resolution, move for its adoption?
So move.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion on the resolution?
Don't leave me hanging.
I just think it's an exciting time, so.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
With that, roll call, please.
Kirby Anderson.
Yes.
Melanie Cole.
Yes.
Missy Hermes, yes. Natalie Knutson.
Yes.
Matthew Lemke.
Yes.
Stephen Vigasa.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Item number 5 is the Fergus Falls Marching Band trip request for the National Memorial Day Parade on May 25th, 2020. With that, do we have, someone would like to offer that motion to approve?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Discussion, please.
Well, I'm gonna vote against this proposal, and I wanted to offer my reasoning to the board. So, 5 days out of school for these students, and then is a lot for next year, because as you know, we've already approved a 3-day band trip, which we've set up kind of on a cycle, so that it's kind of minimizes the amount of interference at the high school. So we do that every couple of years.
So you're
By
talking
design.
5 days out, you're combining the trips, or you're just saying?
Yeah,
this is-
combining
okay,
the
'cause
trips,
This trip is
so-
only, I think, 2 days, isn't it?
Yes.
Right.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, that's clear.
Yep.
But it's a 2-day trip at the end of the school year. And I don't know if any of you have had students that stay behind when the band goes, but it undercuts the entirety of the high school education process. And so, whereas the band parents said, yeah, it's a good idea, nobody asked the parents of the kids who are sticking around whether or not we want to suspend their education for a couple of days. So, I would note, last year we had 5 snow days, and it was such an issue that the legislature talked about it, everybody was in an uproar. Now, as a directive board for the school, we're making a voluntary decision to take 5 days out of education, doesn't make sense to me. 3 days, yes, on a pattern, as discussed, and then that seems like a reasonable trade-off. But what if we also have 5 snow days on top of this? That's another concern. So, some of the other concerns I sport is that staff has reached out to say that this would really be a detriment to the spring sports season, as you know. If you know the end game, you're not going to be there. It does also have an impact on the entirety of the team performance for the season. So there's that feature. Staff, this came up apparently rather hurriedly, and I don't know that staff had a chance to give their input about the wisdom of taking the last couple of days of school and removing a large quadrant of our student body. So I think we had we have a good pattern where we approve the trips every couple of years, and we can kind of accommodate it, we can build our schedule around it. If the board is thinking that maybe we take a couple of days off this Christmas break and return to school. I mean, we already did next year's calendar, and usually we have a band trip already decided so we can integrate it into our school calendar. So next year we have a nice 2-week break over Christmas, this coming year, whatever, this next school year, and maybe we should adjust that so that we serve the educational needs of the students. But last thought is, we do struggle with attendance in the school. I don't know that it sends the right message from the board to say, yep, okay, a certain allotment of students can go have 5 days out and it's okay. So that, I put a lot of thought into it. I just think that it's not in the students' best interests.
Well, I'm going to disagree with you on the fact that no learning is taking place, because the agenda that we were given showed a lot of learning happening, and that it's 8th grade, I'm thinking, and through 12th grade, whereas the band trip is just juniors and seniors. Also, because it's at the end of the year, the other students that are in school are going places too. that's a time when a lot of field trips are taking place, whether it's to Glendalough or maybe the museum or places like that. So I think that not everybody is staying in the school building itself as well. So I'm gonna disagree that there's no learning taking place.
Undercuts the education. I don't know staff, or no criticism of the staff, but I don't know that they're inclined to bring forward any significant material when the classroom's half empty. It's a reality that that my children experienced when they did not go on band trips, and I think that's just kind of commonplace, but.
You know, and this is an optional trip, right? And so if, you know, and they have to fundraise, and I missed the work session, but they have to fundraise for this. And so, I mean, kids have to make choices all the time too, so if there's they have to choose, okay, do I play baseball, or do I go on my band trip? And, you know, I think, you know, when you're talking about the sports versus band portion, I think we need to trust the parents of the students to decide what's best for their kids, and the kids too, if they're, you know, old enough to do that. So I don't know, I think that it's, the kids that want to stay in sports will stay in sports, the kids that want to go on band, they'll go on the trip, and especially if you have to raise that much money, it's, I don't know. And I agree with Missy about the education. I mean, going on a trip like this, seeing that kind of stuff is up close, you know, is really educational. I mean, to see how, to go to the Capitol.
Well, I don't deny that it's really educational
Yeah.
for an elite group of our students.
I guess my concern is I can see it being framed as, okay, these are the band kids and these are the athletes, and I look at, you know, missing 5 days, and I look at the athletes and I say, okay, the athletes go on trips, and we've had state tournaments, girls hockey, boys basketball, and you look at the impact that is on the whole school, how many kids are gone during that, and so there's opportunities that the athletes have that the band kids don't have. And so I think that's a big deal, and I agree with Missy that it's a civics education. It's a once-in-a-lifetime trip for the kids to go to Washington, D.C. I've been there many times, going to all the Smithsonian's and so on. So I hate to see us get into this, well, we're going to miss kids off the athletic teams, but it is a voluntary thing. If somebody's a key member of the team, then I hope they know that they can choose to stay, and they can. And there's a significant investment from the band members because they have to raise money. So I think it's a good deal. I think it's music is. I'm a musician. Some of the others are too. You know, music is something you can enjoy the rest of your life. And I think I've talked to a couple staff members, and it seems like our musicians, as a demographic group, are some of our better students too. They're committed to music, and so I think missing a couple days of school from their perspective is not going to be a real detriment to their education. Even though I recognize that when other kids are staying behind, that there is a negative connotation there. But overall, I still think it's a great deal.
Can I make one more comment?
Absolutely.
I think that this is an honor for our school as well to be invited to go. We're the only school, high school, from the 7th Congressional District that Congressman Peterson has recommended for this parade. This is a one-time thing. It's not going to happen every year. We're not going to miss 5 days of school to go on a parade all the time. This is a one year that this will happen. And so I think it's an exciting opportunity.
Well, and it is exciting, and I caution us against getting starstruck when our responsibility is the education of the students. And of course, we've had other great opportunities that we have rejected before, the Rose Bowl or the trip to the Pearl Harbor in Hawaii. These things preceded your time on the board, but these special opportunities do arise, and that's what actually confirms and solidifies my point on being consistent about it, having a consistent pattern. If the choir group comes in and says, hey, by the way, we got invited to New York City, what are we gonna do? You know what I mean? We gotta keep our eye on our mission, I think.
Any other discussion? Okay, all those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Motion passes. Item number 6 is we have the school board policy revisions. This would be 530 immunization requirements and 456 jury duty. Does anybody want to comment on them before we?
I comment that on the jury duty, it was less than clear that the staff get their salary, that they get to keep their salary. You know, it's all about the check, turning the check over, but.
Right.
But I think the trade-off then is you get to be paid, right?
Right.
Correct.
And I didn't see that, you know, elementarily.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if they took a personal day, which they're not going to, they could keep their check,
Right.
for example. But
$26.
Exactly. So the idea would be that is, yes, as a matter of procedure, they would turn the check over to the district, and that would not be counted as a day absent, if you will.
Right.
So it'd be a normal day of pay for them. Yep.
Right, I don't know, I mean, it might be assumed by reading the policy that you get to keep your regular paycheck then, and that all things are intact, but it wasn't exactly clear, I didn't know if it needed.
Okay, and I'll just read it. A staff member can choose whether to use personal leave as a reason for the absence and keep the small check received from the state of Minnesota, or use jury duty as a reason for absence where the check must be signed over to ISD 544 and given to the accounts receivable secretary. So I think right in there with, if they choose to do jury duty, there is where we need to state that they would remain regular pay. That's what you're kind of saying, right?
Yeah, just
Okay, sure. It
if
can
you're
easily be put in.
unfamiliar.
Absolutely.
So if you made the motion with that addition, that clearly states staff has a regular pay.
Yeah, that would
Okay,
be,
perfect.
I think be clarified.
And the immunization requirement, I'll just make that mention to that. That is, that is stemmed from our Title I audit that we had this spring. And with the Title I is the homeless piece that's connected to that and funding connected to that. And this was one of the requirements that we had to meet statute with, is to have this statement regarding immunization there, regarding the homeless students and whether we would exempt them from that, or at least it would not create a barrier for them to enroll immediately into our school. And the same thing with the next policy, that first reading of the transportation of homeless students. Again, that's mandated and driven by that Title I audit that we had this spring. So just meeting the requirements of the law with those.
So with item number 6 here with the policies, Melanie, do you want to offer that
Yes.
motion with the addition?
Right, I'll offer the motion that we adopt the 2 policy revisions, contingent upon adding to policy number 456, jury duty, that it's clear that the employee retains their regular paycheck if not keeping a jury duty paycheck.
Do we have a second on that motion?
I'll second that.
Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item number 7 is the first reading of School Board Policy 707, Transportation of the Homeless Students. This is a new policy, and this is again for your review, and we will have action on it at our next board meeting. Item number 8 is the...
Let's, just a little bit on that, and again, it's a requirement for the audit and working through, if you remember, we had transportation for foster kids was a recent one. The audit is just cleaning up some things. We have actually taken the policy, it's a large transportation policy. We're actually focusing on the requirement for homeless students that works. So that's, as you're reading it, you'll read just about homeless student transportation.
Right, and it's, like Jerry says, directly from MSBA, and it's actually a statute, so we don't have it in policy, but we did take the homeless piece just to meet the, again, requirements of the Title I grant, and place just that portion into the policy itself.
Okay, item number 8 is the 2019-2020 Fergus Falls Public Schools grades K through 12 Student Parent Handbook and policy 506, student code of conduct and discipline policy. Do we have a motion to approve that as presented?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second?
I think Missy. Any discussion? Although,
Go ahead.
all those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. That concludes our regular school board meeting. Our next regular school board meeting will be Monday, June 24th at 7 a.m. Right here at the Otter Community Room at Kennedy Secondary School. Following this, we will go into a work session to talk about the school board agenda retreat agenda. There we go. And personnel. And with that, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
I'll take Steve. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Kurt. Any discussion? All those in favor of adjourning, say aye.
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 Opposed? We are adjourned.